What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Pack-A-Day Podcast Live Edition, which I like to conveniently call Pack-A-Day Live. I am joined by the one and only Maggie J. Loney. You can follow her on Twitter at Maggie J. Loney. You can follow me at Andy Herman NFL. I believe at some juncture we're going to be joined by the one and only Dusty Evely as well. But Maggie, how the heck are you doing?
Probably better than Dusty. He told us that he might be late because of T-ball, and then he had to clarify that it was for his son, but I'm starting to believe that maybe it was Dusty playing T-ball, and that is why he's not joining us.
We can't have two Achilles injuries in 1 week, so I'm hoping that Dusty's okay and that everything's going well, but I'm assuming he's going to be here any second. But so obviously we're going to talk a lot about the past week. We'll start talking a little bit about Packers Falcons as well, but just kind of 1,000-foot view, what was sort of your big takeaways from the Packers going 1-0 and just sort of what stood out to you?
So I don't want there to be an asterisk for this because the caveat, of course, is that it's just the Bears defense. But I was
Yes.
just really impressed with the poise of Jordan Love. Even, the moment where he fumbles the snap and then looks downfield and manages to find Luke Musgrave for a should have been touchdown. Like, he was so chill and calm and collected in the pocket, went through his progressions really nicely, almost overcomplicated things for himself at times. But there's just so much to like and so much to build off of. And additionally, Matt LaFleur's offense is going to be really, really fun with somebody that'll actually run it the way it's supposed to be run.
You said the thing, and I'm glad you did. I totally agree. Matt LaFleur playing coy and being like, "What do you mean, not run my offense?" It's like, exactly what everyone means. There was a different, quarterback / head coach / offensive coordinator / GM that kind of like to run things a little bit his way, which wasn't always a bad thing. But it certainly was I wouldn't even say like a conflict of interest, but he had his own nuances of doing things. I mean, we even heard yesterday and we've heard all this week with the injury that he suffered that, he didn't like players cut blocking because he wanted to be able to buy time and have that extra time. Like there's just certain things that he wanted to go a certain way. And like I said, I'm not necessarily even saying that is a bad thing, but I think we are seeing now, I mean, how many different formations and like motions and everything did we see from this offense? And Jordan looked extremely comfortable playing under center. He looked extremely comfortable throwing in the middle of the field. And yeah, it's just different. And sometimes different can be bad. And I think there's probably going to be sometimes living over the middle of the field that may not be super advantageous. There's probably going to be some risk involved with it, but there's going to be some very exciting plays that come with it as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, taking this with a grain of salt too, like Tom Brady's offense looks different than Bryce Young's. Like these are just when you have NFL experience, you're allowed to do things differently. And it's going to be really interesting to see the true LaFleur offense because I don't think we've seen it yet in his entire tenure as a coach. There's always been like the little asterisk of, Matt LaFleur or doesn't have full control.
I agree. Dusty Evely, ladies and gentlemen, he did not tear his Achilles playing T-ball. He was just coaching, thankfully. So, Dusty,
my elbow turned to dust. I've got a little brace on. My elbow turned to dust. But other than that, I'm doing great, man. Sorry, I'm a little late.
You are welcome to be late anytime that you want. We were just kind of jumping in and talking right away about some of our overarching takeaways. We were talking about Jordan Love. Let's just ask your opinion on this. Is there a difference between the Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur offense and just the pure unadulterated Matt LaFleur offense that maybe we saw this week? Is it a myth or a legend from the one and only tape guru that always breaks down the myths or the legends that go around these parts?
So it's a tricky question because there clearly is. And we knew there would be to some extent. I still think it's not as big as what we saw this past week because there's things Rodgers likes. And we still saw some of that stuff, but like part of it is like, I don't know if LaFleur was like just purposefully disrespecting the Bears or if he was like, we're going to put a bunch of stuff on tape because he threw stuff out there that was wild, like stuff. And not just like necessarily what they're running from like concept perspective, the personnel groupings, the formations they had, without Mercedes Lewis, it was like maybe they use a 6 offensive lineman, and they did. I mean, for the first time in the LaFleur era, they tried Rasheed Walker out there. They had that funky little like pistol look where they had the running back straight behind and then 2 tight ends in the backfield, and they ran a couple different things out of it. He was really just like, I think they got up to a certain point and he was like, this is in my bag. I'm just going to throw it out there because then teams have to prepare for this. But it was a wild offense. Like when they play an actual defense, is he still doing that? Or was this really just I can get away with this in this game, and then we're going to kind of settle things down as we go on? I'm not really sure, but I think this is not the game to ask that question because it looked pretty wild at times.
Yeah, you could tell Matt LaFleur had an off season to himself to put some things together. Like, just like, hey, we're gonna try some things. And to your point, I think they did get to a point where they had the lead and we're just going to throw more out there. And it will be interesting to see what they build off of what they threw out there. If I had to guess, and just kind of knowing what Matt LaFleur does in the past, like I would guess week 2 is something totally different. And we see even like complete different things from what we saw week 1. And by the time you get to week 3 and New Orleans has to game plan for it, now they've got like, you just saw a totally different offense in week 1 than they saw in week 2. And it's like, all right, now what the heck do we do? But it's, I really liked what we saw from Matt on Sunday.
Yeah, some really cool stuff out of Pony too, which they'd struggled with. The ways of attacking vertically out of like that shotgun split backfield, which was a lot of fun that they struggled with last year. It's kind of awesome.
Any other takeaways, Maggie?
I mean, your chat's kind of already talking about it, but Darnell Savage, it's one game, right? Like the litmus test is not to be decided yet, but some really nice jumps that we're seeing from young players. Quay Walker obviously having the pick 6, Devontae Wyatt looking like he is just completely come into his own. Kenny Clark finally getting a little bit of help on the interior. Lucas Van Ness making a big play. Carl Brooks. Matt LaFleur said, like, my rookie class loves ball. Like, these guys want to play ball. And that is really exciting. Pairing it with guys like Darnell Savage who are, through one game looking really good. Rashawn Gary, having more pressures than the entire Bears team in like 5 snaps. Like,
yeah.
Bananas. Like, it was just a really cool performance from the defense.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the things that I think kind of goes under the radar is we had all these questions for the Tucker Crafts and the Luke Musgraves and like all these young players that we haven't, got to experience in an NFL game. But there's a lot of veterans on this team that we kind of need to re-experience as well. Darnell Savage being one. I thought Rasul Douglas had a fantastic game at outside corner. Getting to see like what Rasul was going to show up. Was it going to be the one from 2 years ago or was it going to be last year's? And I thought he was one of the absolute best players in training camp. And he seemingly carried that over into week 1, which is awesome to see. Devondre Campbell, outside of the pulling off the pile penalty, which did kind of really hurt them and really back them up out of what would have been easy field goal range into, where they eventually had to punt the ball away. Outside of that, I thought he had a nice game. And just a lot of the players that we had question marks, maybe outside of Josh Myers, which maybe we can talk about later. But outside of that, I thought we got a lot of positive answers from some of the questions that we had, even from some of the veteran players. There's another one we need to talk maybe before we get to Josh Myers. And we did have a lot of positives to take away, but I think one of the lightning rods for this week and sort of the Rorschach test of how you feel about him has been AJ Dillon, who I don't think anyone would make an argument that he had a good week. I don't think anyone would make the argument of like, all right, like we're super excited about what was on tape on Sunday. I do think there was a little bit of unluckiness where he kind of got the brunt of the carries when there was nothing blocked for him. He had a unlucky one where he probably should have scored a touchdown and just a leg goes out in front of him and he trips over, I think it was Josiah DeGuara on the play. And, he has the one out in the flat that he can't get his hands on. It's a drop, but like, even if he caught it, it was probably going for, 1 yard anyway. Like it wasn't a great performance, but at the same token, he had a couple nice blitz pickups. I don't know. I don't take too much away from this of like, oh my God, Dillon is terrible. He sucks. We've seen him get better as the year goes along. I posted today the statistics of his. He's by far and away his worst stats are in September. Usually he gets kind of better as the year goes on. But Dusty, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on Dillon in this game and kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't great, but I also think like I've seen a lot of like he didn't look good, and then also there's the numbers to prove it. Which listen, I like numbers. I do a lot of things that excel in my job. I am a fan of numbers. I'm very pro numbers. But like, how much does the conversation change if he doesn't get blown up in the backfield from an unblocked defender, which is not his fault, and if his best run of the day that was like a tremendous balance from him, tremendous contact balance out on the left side there for whatever it was, 12 yards, doesn't get called back for a holding. Suddenly that like 10 carries for 19 yards, if you take away, I know we're now in the business of, if you take away his worst and add one that didn't technically count, it gets a little tricky here. But if you take away that worst one, which again, not his fault, and add the next one, you're looking at like, 10 carries, 25 yards or something. It's still not great, but like that's better. That's better than it was. And then you can kind of squint and say, okay, I can see some few unlucky breaks. I don't think, yeah, like you said, I think it's a Rorschach test. I think it's how you felt about him going in is how you felt. Because I don't think he did anything amazing. I don't think he looked particularly bad. I do think, some of the stretch stuff he's not particularly good at. That's not necessarily his game. And I feel like they leaned heavy into that with him. But I didn't come out of it going, AJ Dillon's washed. AJ Dillon's AJ Dillon. If you didn't like him before this, you don't like him now. Like I didn't see anything to really change my mind one way or another on it.
That's fair. Maggie, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard too because we know Matt LaFleur loves his outside zone, and AJ Dillon has never been designed to be an east-west runner. Like, that's just not his game. So if you want him to go north-south, yes. I mean, sometimes you said it, we can talk about Josh Myers. Sometimes he's not the most fun to probably run behind, and that makes things a little complicated. But I think the tricky part too about AJ Dillon is that his complement is Aaron Jones. And what is this offense without Aaron Jones? So like he's in a rock and a hard place because he's never going to beat Aaron Jones. He's a decent complement for Aaron Jones, and we've seen that in past seasons. But I think what AJ Dillon proved on Sunday is that this offense needs Aaron Jones. You know what I mean? Like it's not fair to him necessarily in the player that he is, because that's not who he is as a player.
Aaron Jones absolutely moving about as fast as I've seen Aaron Jones move in like 2 years too, which was insane.
He looked great. He looked really, really good. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like sometimes when you're comparing him to Aaron Jones, it's not always doing any favors to AJ Dillon. And that's not most people, it's not going to do any favors to, because he's Aaron freaking Jones. And every time he touches the ball, he does something fantastic with it, it feels like. So I do feel like that's part of it. I do feel like also now, as Green Bay has maybe moved on from the older Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard and Mercedes Lewis and Robert Tonyan, and maybe some of the slower players on the team are now mostly in New York, but in Chicago, I guess too. You add in a Luke Musgrave, and you add in a Jaden Reed, and you add in some of these really fast pieces, and you get a taste of like, oh my goodness, the speed. Even on defense and special teams, we saw the speed as well. And then I think you all of a sudden get AJ Dillon the ball, and it's a change of pace. And that's not a bad thing, but like you've gotten used to now, like, oh, we've got playmakers everywhere. And then AJ Dillon gets the ball and it's just a step slower than maybe some of the other guys. And I think sometimes it takes a little bit of getting used to. Like I said, I think that's going to pay dividends in the long run in those November, December, January games. And sometimes you want just a different flavor of player. You don't need 3 Aaron Jones type players on the team. You want your speed, shifty back. You want your power back. You want an overall back. You want guys who can do different things. I think you have that in Jones and Dillon. I still believe, and feel free to either of you correct me if you feel differently, I still feel like they've never quite figured out the perfect Jones-Dillon formula. It always feels like just as Jones gets going and you want more Jones, all right, in comes Dillon. And even even in the games where like Dillon starts to get going, it's like, oh, we got to get Aaron Jones back in the game. And it never quite feels like they found that perfect balance of the two where you're like, yeah, this feels exactly how it's supposed to be. I don't have a perfect answer for it, but it never quite feels like they've got that rhythm quite down through 3-4 years now, whatever it's been.
They've tried to do like the hot hand thing. Where like a guy is doing well and you keep him in for a couple series and then they get away from that because, like you said, there's not like there's no way to qualify a hot hand because a lot of times it's blocking. So there's no way to really do that. And then it's like you give this guy series and that guy series, you can't really do that. Like you said, I don't know that there's a perfect answer. I mean, Dillon in the red zone makes a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, Jones statistically is a much better red zone runner than AJ Dillon has been as well. So my thing, I think I mentioned this on Pack a Day. You guys are familiar with Pack a Day. This past week is the Cowboys. Was it McFadden and Marion Barber? They legit would just like, they wouldn't use Marion Barber until the fourth quarter. And then they was all Marion Barber. Just like, we're going to hammer you directly at these guys who are exhausted. Try that. Let's give that a shot.
I like that idea. I would not mind that at all. And to your point about red zone, I've talked about this for a while. Everyone likes to be like, hey, just give it to the battering ram in the goal line or whatever. Sometimes I feel like the less surface area you have, when the creases become extremely small in the red zone and in those goal line situations, Jones is like the slipperiest. Like just when you think there's no possible way he can get through a crease or a hole, he's like the one guy that always finds a way to get through it. So in the goal line, when those situations become that much tighter, it's harder to fit a guy that's the, a refrigerator through that tiny hole. And it's a lot easier to find, get the slippery guy through there. So I get the power idea. I understand, every once in a while you need to just try to, shove it right up the middle too sometime. But I really like Aaron Jones in those goal line situations. I like Aaron Jones in every situation. Mm-hmm. And I know that's also a problem because you can't just give it to him every time either.
Do you think that this game or just, this season, because Andrew Murtick on the Pack a Day podcast, again, if you're familiar, has talked about that he thinks that Aaron Jones could be in contention for Offensive Player of the Year with the role he's going to play on this specific offense and the support for Jordan Love. Do you think that does anything to the way the Packers view this season with their 2 backs on 1-year deals remaining? Or do you think that this is like, okay, well, he's still probably not on the team next year?
Whew, I think they'll cross that bridge when they get to it, is what my guess is. I don't think they have a great feel. And I think part of that's going to be contract negotiations with Aaron and AJ, and what are they asking for? What is their value on the open market? Do either of them take discounts to stay in Green Bay? We know how Aaron has felt about the team and has taken discounts in the past to stay with the team. We know how AJ feels about the area and Door County and everything like that. So I think just the contract situation, what they do this season, Aaron's getting, I think he's 30 next year, if I remember, at some point next year, which is that evil age for all NFL players, but even more evil for running backs. So plus Jonathan Taylor is probably going to be on the team in a couple of weeks, which could really cause some chaos there too. So I don't know. I think they're going to cross that bridge when they come to it, but I don't hate the idea of Aaron Jones in the offensive player of the year conversation, but he's going to need to get that hammy up and running, sooner rather than later, and probably can't miss any games, including this week against Atlanta. So we'll see what that brings. Dusty, what do you think?
I mean, I don't think they're changing the mix now. And I think they've got Aaron Jones. I think they not necessarily a pitch count, and the hamstring certainly is a concern. But as far as, I don't think they want him playing above a certain percentage, because I do think effectiveness goes down on him after that. We saw that every season as it wears on. Everyone gets dinged up, but it does feel like the top end speed kind of goes away a little bit more. I mean, I like if he gets offensive player of the year, I do feel like, as much as people hate to hear this, in that more limited role. In that, I think he got 47% of snaps or something this past week. If you keep him there, and I know people don't want to hear that, but if you keep him there and then you just put him in positions for him to be effective, like that little angle route touchdown was beautiful, because you just get him in space one-on-one against a linebacker, and he's got that alley to run through afterwards. That's how you got to do it. You almost have to put him on the pitch count. If you want him offensive player of the year, you have him less, and then you just feed him when he is in the game, I think, is the way you're going to have to do it. But I don't think seeing the field anymore is going to help him achieve that. I don't think.
It is worth noting too that it's not just Matt LaFleur that's like, going back to Mike McCarthy. Like, every coach that's had him has used him basically in this role. Like, there's a limited amount of snaps they get him. Everyone sort of feels like he is going to be best if he stays within this range of snaps and how many times he gets the ball. And I think we also have to remember too, if McCarthy and LaFleur earlier in his career have him in that 300 carry, whatever it is, range, like, we're probably not talking about Aaron Jones still on this team, at least playing at this high of a level. Like, there's a benefit to him not having as many, like, look at the Ezekiel Elliott's of the world that just get, run into oblivion in their first few years. And by the time you get to what Ezekiel is probably a couple years younger than Jones, I want to say, or at least
I think he's like 27 or something like that. Yeah.
And he's like, his legs are done. They're gone. So I've appreciated what they've done with him. And like I said, I think it just all comes down to figuring out that perfect calculus of how you use all those running backs. And it's been difficult. It's been hard. And I guess I don't have a perfect answer for it either. I wish I did, because I'd call Matt and I'd be like, hey, this is what you should do. And I'm sure he'd listen. But I don't know. Any other brainstorming ideas for running backs?
Don't have a running back. Just use a whole bunch of rotation of offensive players back there.
Ooh,
that's
I like
kind of
that.
fun.
Just 5 wide.
I like that.
Just go 5 wide.
5 wide, and you're like, well, you're in the backfield this time around. You're just this is you now, which probably gets rid of AJ Dillon, I guess, in this scenario. Probably. Sorry, brother, but Jaden Reed's gonna eat. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, he is. You will see Jaden Reed in the backfield in some capacity, not as a running back, but in the backfield as a wide receiver option at some point this season, no question. All right, housekeeping stuff really quick. Thank you so much, Scott Johnson, for becoming a new member. Thank you so much, Michael Riley, for becoming a new member. And then we've got Tyler coming in hot with the super chat. So Tyler says, I've watched Musgrave's college tape and what he's done so far this year. To me, he looks clumsy, not a lot of after the catch, and he trips a lot. Can he grow out of that, or is that just how some guys are? Dusty, I see you smiling. I'll let you take this one first. I have some thoughts on this as well.
I was talking to someone about that this past week. It really is just like, he looks so fluid. He looks so good. Honestly, a better blocker than I thought he was going to be. You say you watch his college tape. I talked to someone about this. I did as well. It was like 2 games, like his last year. Like his college tape, there's not much of his college tape. He's a better blocker than I thought he was going to be. Like, he not only like knows where he's supposed to be, but he's like driving guys, like not consistently, but he's doing better as a blocker than I thought he was going to be. And he looks so smooth. He runs such beautiful routes, and the ball's in the air. And then like his legs turn into baby giraffe legs. It's the strangest thing. He had you can make a case on that leak play, the big like 37-yard gain, because the timing's thrown off on that from the fumble, and the ball's kind of lofted up, and he's kind of spun around, and he's got it. That's one thing. That's weird. He had a corner route, like a beautiful corner route that Love lays up what appears to be perfectly, and like he breaks perfect out of the break. And as soon as the ball's in the air, his feet go like two different directions, and he stumbles, and the ball's like 10 yards past him. And it's the weirdest thing. I mean, my opinion on this, I am an optimistic person by nature. I have a very hard time believing that if you're that athletic, that all of a sudden your body just forgets how to run. I think like as the game slows down, I don't know what's going on in his brain once the ball's in the air, but something is crossing him up. As the game slows down, as he gets a little more comfortable, I think that clears up. Now, I could be totally wrong on that, but I have a hard time like watching the guy run those routes and then watching that same guy after the ball's in the air. I have a hard time figuring out. I don't know how those are the same guys. It's truly baffling.
Maggie, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dusty said it really well. It's almost like the ball's in the air and he's like, oh shoot, it's coming to me, and he like gets in his head too far, and all of a sudden his legs stop working. But I think not only do I think he'll grow out of that, but just the speed that we haven't seen from the tight end position in this Packer offense, even if he's not hauling in that many passes, just at least early in the season, I should say, just that you have to account for him and you always have to know where he is. That's something that this Packers offense hasn't had in a while. So even if he's not necessarily putting up a ton of numbers early, like 50 yards a game, 35 yards a game even, that feels right for a rookie tight end. Like really hard position to acclimate in the NFL. So I think just having to account for where he is in the field, knowing that he has the potential to burn you, even if he falls down after he does burn you, that's going to make a difference.
It's a really interesting thing. I did have part of this in like my scouting report from when I first watched him, because in college, because you'll see sometimes too where like after the catch, it's like his feet just get ahead of him, and like it almost feels like he's too fast for his own body, which is like he's been clocked as the fastest player at practice one day, Matt LaFleur said, and he's like a 6'6" tight end. So it kind of checks out that like at some point, like he's just going a little bit too fast than what I almost feel like his body can and his mind can like
he's
handle.
Got, like the little roadrunner legs. It's just like
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
he's about to just fall off a cliff and then like look down.
But anvil falls on his head. Like no.
Yeah, all those things are happening. So I think we're clear on that. But it's interesting because there's times where I've watched him in practice and in family night and things like that, where he's running like these crossing routes and he just looks like the smoothest gazelle that you could possibly imagine. And it looks like, oh my God, this is like a Greek god running out there on the field. And then there's other times where it looks more Looney Tunes-ish. And I can't exactly put my finger on it. I'm with you, Dusty. I do think that slows down from time to time. But even if there is a bit of that, even if that's just kind of who he is, and let's just say it happens 2 out of every 10 plays that those other 8 are going to look really, really good. He's going to be really fast. Sometimes he might stumble after the catch. Sometimes he might stumble at the catch point. I don't know, whatever. But like the rest of what he brings to the table is going to be more than any other tight end, I think, that we've seen probably since Jermichael Finley. As Maggie, you mentioned, the ability to stretch the field and draw coverage. 2 plays, I think one, I forget now when they're, but I think one was in family night where they get the touchdown in the right corner. Luke Musgrave's going right up the middle of the field, 2 safeties right with him. And then there was another one, I think, in the preseason game where it was Jaden Reed who had the pass interference call against the Bengals. He gets a one-on-one matchup on the outside because why? Because Luke Musgrave is screaming in the middle of the field. 2 guys go towards him. It leaves the wide receiver one-on-one. Easy read for Jordan, ends up being a pass interference and almost a touchdown on the play. So and then Dusty, to your point, like the blocking this week was far better than I expected as well, especially in week 1. If you would have told me, and I've mentioned this a couple times, but if you would have told me at the peak of Luke Musgrave's power in like 4 or 5 years from now, that this is what he looked like as a blocker, I'd have been like, that's probably better than I expected. And that was week 1 as a rookie. So there's a lot to like. There's always going to be some hiccups and some learning curve for a rookie, but I was very, very pleased with his first game. No one wants to fight me. Everyone's cool with that.
Honestly, like the blocking stuff, I kind of thought that was going to be Tucker Kraft a little more early, and Musgrave was going to be more like big wide receiver. Luke Musgrave out the gate already looks almost like a well-rounded tight end that, again, loses his mind when the ball's in the air. But I thought Kraft was going to be like, you're the blocker, you're the dude in line, like you're doing that stuff, and we'll teach you other stuff afterwards. But Musgrave's already got that down better than Kraft does at this point, even assignment-wise. Kraft has been swimming a bit.
Big time. No, I totally agree. And it's been very apparent because we know how good this rookie class has looked overall. Luke Musgrave's been the only guy since day one of OTAs and mini camps that's been the starters with the ones. Like I think LVN with Gary out got a few looks with the ones. Obviously, Anders Carlson is your kicker, but it has been Musgrave from day one at tight end one, and he has never looked back. He's never given it up, and I think he's going to hold that position for a very, very long time. All right, we had a couple other things. So first of all, Kevin, yes, Aaron Jones is 28. He turns 29 in December. He's always the same birthday as Aaron Rodgers, right? I think he does. So yes, turns 29 in December. So next year he will be 30 during that season. What else do we have here? I don't know. I think that's pretty much it for questions. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. We didn't get a chance a ton. We posted it, but we didn't get a chance to really talk about Darnell Savage all that much. So we talked about some of just in general, the veteran players that we kind of wanted to see better. But I think obviously his playing, a little faster, a little quicker, a little bit more aggressive. I just like that he was flying around and not thinking quite as much. I thought there were a couple plays in coverage where maybe he could have been in a little bit better position, but overall, you give me this Darnell Savage for 17 weeks and sign me the hell up right the heck now.
It's one of those, it's like, it's a huge caveat because it's the Bears and like, what are they going to do? But like all off season was this safety room looks like an abject disaster. If Darnell Savage is your safety one, and at a certain point, maybe even now, who's safety two? I have no idea. But it was like, it's the weakest part of the defense. And yet Savage was down there. He was making plays. He looked confident. He was making tackles. He was flying down. He seemed like he knew what he was supposed to do pretty much the entire game. Like it was, I feel bad. It feels mean. I feel shocked that Darnell Savage was competent. But here we are. So I hope he keeps up the rest of the year. I mean, the whole defense was playing with an aggressive nature we just hadn't seen. We just need to get Joe Barry to the booth, apparently, was the answer. Like that's all we need to do, and then we're good to go.
Yeah, I think that part of it too is like he was always the free safety and Adrian Amos got to play like the thumper in the box. And it kind of feels like Darnell Savage just belongs in the box. Like he looks so much more natural when he gets to attack, when he gets to be kind of roaming around that front and making adjustments and not having to react, So I think that's part of it too. I don't know what you guys thought about like Rudy Ford, or if you think maybe that is still kind of an open competition, but at least letting Darnell Savage kind of go hunt the ball with his nose, I thought for week one, it's a really, really nice game from him.
I'm sure they would love it to be an open competition. I don't know who he's competing against at the moment. Like, I don't know. I personally thought Jonathan Owens had a really tough preseason. I wasn't super encouraged by his play. He looked good on special teams. So I think that's a key reason he's on the team, but didn't think at safety he looked all that great. Anthony Johnson Jr., I was really hoping was going to be able to compete for that spot. He's been a little bit banged up. I think he's basically been a full go on practice recently though, but he didn't do anything to inspire where it's like, all right, he's definitely ready to play right now. I think if Ford really struggled, you probably at some point just give him a shot. You don't want to see Dallin Levitt in there. They got Zane Anderson. He didn't even get active on his first day, which, for being a guy who probably is primarily special teams, that's probably not a great sign. And they call up Ennis Gaines to play special teams over him, despite Gaines being a practice squad guy. So I don't know. I'm sure they would love it to be a competition. I just don't know who at this point he'd be competing against unless they do something crazy and move some things around. But I don't want to see that either, because the name that comes up always is Sewell. And Sewell's an outside corner. He's really freaking good at it. And I want to stop having people think of moving him other places. All right, we're in agreement. I like this. There was a great chat here. All right, so Boom, which is a great name. Thanks so much for being a member. Boom. Why should we fear the Falcons? Ritter threw for I messed it up. Ritter threw for 5 yards the whole game last week. Dusty, I'm assuming, did you have a chance to watch any Falcons film yet?
I did. I love, man, Arthur Smith is such a weirdo. Like he's such a weird combative man. And they had the thing about Drake London had one target and he was like, well, he doesn't care. I can guarantee you Drake London cares whether he gets a target or not. I'd say the thing I'm scared of that I was worried more before this game, the Bears, for all their faults, a good, efficient running game last year. And that's what the Falcons want to do. They don't want to throw the ball. Yeah, Ritter looked real bad. I saw something that Ritter hasn't thrown an interception in his 5 starts. Well, he should have. And also they don't protect him, or they protect him a ton. They try to throw too much. So, I mean, Ritter doesn't scare me. the Falcons offense is so well designed. We saw a little bit of what Bijan could do this past week, and he looked electric. And then when he's not in there, Algiers is out there, and Algiers looked really good as well. So, I mean, that's like, when I think about the Falcons, I don't even think about the passing game. I just think about the running game, what they try to do to you on the ground. They've got a good offensive line. They've got, I mean, Pitts is good for what he is, but he's also a willing blocker. Drake London's a good blocker. Like, everyone's bought into that running game. So this is a team that if they can put 250 yards with you on the ground and throw, say, like 8 times, which I don't think that's ever happened to the Packers before, certainly not in a playoff game, they will do that. And so the Packers are going to button up because they're certainly going to want to just run down your throats, and they've got explosive playmakers to run the ball as well. So yeah, Ritter doesn't scare me, but he's also a good enough athlete. I mean, that was a style of football outside started like years ago, that the run games are more efficient if you have a running quarterback, because you get +1 in the run game. Ritter is not an elite athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but he can move, and he's an aid to your run game. So to me, yeah, the only thing that scares me about is his athleticism. And then if they get the run game going, and if you have to sell out for that, you've got offensive weapons that can beat you down the field. That when I think of the Falcons offense, Ritter is not the one keeping me awake at night.
No, I agree. Maggie, did you just general thoughts on what you're afraid of, or matchups you're looking forward to this weekend?
I think it's just a bigger test for Jordan Love and a young offense when you have a guy like Jesse Bates, who's somebody in week 1 already forced 3 turnovers, 2 picks, and then a forced fumble. Like, the Bears didn't have that player, especially in the secondary, that really was striking fear into the hearts of Jordan Love and this offense. And Jesse Bates is actually that guy. And it's fun now that they have Jerry Gray, coaching up that secondary. I'm sure that'll be kind of a fun reunion for a lot of, the Packers safeties and corners to come back and see him. But yeah, it's having a safety like Jesse Bates on the opposite side, I think it's going to be a much larger test for Jordan Love and the offense than this Bears defense was. So Dusty took the offense. I'll take Jesse Bates.
And I think you guys both bring up great points. And what I'll say is, when you go against the Bears, and one of the things that I talked about kind of going into the season for Chicago, I always look at it as like, if I'm a coordinator for the opposing team, who am I losing sleep over? Who am I staying up at night? And obviously for the Bears, Justin Fields on the ground is something that you have to be cognizant of at all times. I think DJ Moore, certainly some of the things he did in preseason with his run after the catch, and just obviously throughout his career so far, that's kind of it. I got to make sure that DJ Moore doesn't beat me, with run after the catch. And I got to make sure that Justin Fields doesn't beat me with his legs. Those are the kind of the 2 things. And I think with Atlanta, you've got a little bit more to worry about, specifically, Bijan Robinson. I throw on the all 22, and the first run, there's very few players in this league that you throw on the tape and they just move at a completely different speed and pace than everyone else on a field full of insane freaking athletes. And like Micah Parsons is one for Dallas, where you're just like, how is he that much quicker and that much fast twitch than everyone that else is in the NFL right now? And Bijan, the first play goes for like 7 yards, but like just the movement skills, I'm like, oh, that's different. And then he has the play to the outside that should have been like a 5-yard loss on like a little like screen play. And he just makes like a little hesitation move, completely makes the guy miss, then goes up, and then there's 2 guys there, and he's just like, nope, screw that, going right through both of those guys, and scores a freaking touchdown on the play. And it's just like, that's going to be a problem. I do think Kyle Pitts, like you said, he kind of is what he is, but I still think that's going to be a potential mismatch piece. And then on defense, you have to worry about Grady Jarrett on that defensive line more than anyone that Chicago had in their front. You've got to worry about Jesse Bates on the back end. AJ Terrell is a hell of a player. So like, it's not that as a team, I don't think the Falcons are like this A+, like, oh my goodness, we should fear going into Atlanta sort of team. But you definitely have some guys now that you have to sort of be aware of and cognizant of, and make sure that they're not beating you on a down-to-down basis, because Atlanta has more of that than I think Chicago did.
And the other thing I'll add to that is, I was looking, it's tough because they changed defensive coordinators. It was Dean Pease last year. I think it's Ryan Nielsen this year. They played a lot of quarters and quarters-based stuff. And so you've got like those pinched guys, those pinched safeties in the middle. And with a lot of the concepts the Packers are running, those in breakers, their timing was a little sloppy this past week against the Bears. Love almost threw a pick when there was one kind of thrown out in front of Dobbs, and Dobbs got his hand up. If they miss on those, I mean, that's where Bates is. You can kind of fire down and attack those and take advantage of missed throws. If they're attacking the middle and they're not crisp on some of that stuff, you're going to get batted balls up in the air, and it's all the stuff Aaron Rodgers didn't want to throw to the middle. The Falcons defensively, it looks like this year, are going to be in a prime position to take advantage of a lot of that stuff too.
No, I totally agree. I think that's the other interesting thing is this is a unfamiliar team. You don't go against the Falcons all that often, and they're a weird team. You don't like what they do offensively and defensively is not like a thing that you normally see on a week to week basis. So it's a lot of unscouted looks. It's an unfamiliar opponent. You're going into their place. You're coming off a win against Chicago, which for a young team could easily get you a little bit overconfident. I don't think it's like this like crazy trap game. It's certainly a winnable game, but there's definitely some things here that give me a little bit cause for concern, and just want to see more than anything. I just kind of want to see how this young team responds to it, and if they can, follow up some of the really good stuff that they did from week 1 and clean up some of the not so great stuff they did and make it better in week 2. All right, a couple more, and then we'll get out of here, guys. Miranda had a really interesting question, and I appreciate the comment, Miranda, as well. But if Dave plays the whole year like the All-Pro he is, do they end up keeping him? And I think it's a really interesting conversation point. The contract is a little bit exorbitant, and he's got 1 year left on his deal. He can't really practice. You never know when the knee's going to go. So it's a really interesting conversation. But Maggie, I'll start with you. If Dave plays this way, like we saw in week 1 through the entirety of the year, is he back on the Packers next year?
I think the Packers make that effort. I could definitely see a world where Aaron Rodgers comes back to the Jets and he lures his best friend away to help him, not tear his other Achilles and, behind an offensive line that he trusts. Like, there's a world where that happens. Like, that just seems like the Aaron Rodgers move. But no, I think David Bakhtiari, like, the thing about this team that I think was so tangible on Sunday was how much fun they're having. And that's not to say they didn't have fun under Aaron Rodgers, but this is like a very young, loose team. And you can tell that for the first time in a long time, there aren't these like exorbitant expectations on them to go to the Super Bowl. And they relish that, and they're taking advantage of that. And that's why I think they can be so successful. Like David Bakhtiari laying on his side, like flipping off Bears fans is just why I think that he plays as well as he does. It's that attitude. And I think they're all rallying around Jordan. And I think I could see him absolutely in a world where he's like, yeah, this was really fun. I want to run this back for a year or two. And if you have a quarterback like Jordan Love, who is young, you do want to have all pros protecting him if you can. So I think it's an ongoing negotiation that maybe is like a 1 or 2 year contract at a time, because he's not going to get many more of those.
Yeah.
But I do think for sure that he's in the conversation for them to bring back.
Do you think there's a world in which he ever gets Jordan Love a golf cart?
Oh, absolutely. This Christmas.
This Christmas? You heard it here first. Dusty, what do you think?
Yeah, I think
the first question, not the golf cart question.
The golf cart. Yeah, I was just answer the golf cart one. I'm not sure. I don't get ton into their cap stuff, so Andy, you might be a better person than I am. But just in terms of like looking at the makeup of their roster, past this year, after they're past the Rodgers stuff, I know they got Jones kind of coming up. They've got a big hit next year, and so they've got something to make there. But all of their skill position guys are young and are not up for. You've got the Gary extension likely coming, I assume, any day now, but that's going to be kind of pushing stuff out. And so it's not going to be all hitting next year unless they want to structure it that way. I feel like they've got some wiggle room in the next couple of years before they start seeing like, well, if we want to pay Christian, what's that going to look like? You've got so many young guys and all these cheap contracts. I feel like the cap stuff clears up. And so just from a money perspective, I think if he wants to come back, and some of that also is like, how do you feel about, because if you say Tom is the right tackle, how do you feel about Rasheed Walker as a starting left tackle going forward? Because if you feel really, really good about him and you really want him out there, I can see just saying like, listen, dude, we thank you for your service. If you would like to go somewhere else, like we're going to, we'll make that happen. If you want to go to New York, we'll make that happen. We really like Rasheed Walker. But if they're a little uncertain on that, I think they've got the money to make that work. And he's a guy, I mean, you don't see a lot of guys play their entire career with a team. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers did not, for the most part, he played the vast majority of his career there. A lot of guys do not do that. I would love to see a guy stick around like that. Maybe Aaron Jones is that dude. Maybe Bakhtiari sticks around as that dude. But I think he's at a point where even with that big cap hit, I think they're at a place where they can afford that. And like you said, I would, if they're like a 6-year extension, under no circumstances do I want that. But if they go a year or two at a time, like I hope they do, just because I like his personality. For one of the older guys on the team, he seems like he fits in with the energy of the team as well. So I'd love to keep him around.
I think there's so many things at play here. So I'll get into the contract in just a second. But I think the first thing is, as you mentioned, the big one is how they feel about Rasheed. But let's even say they feel really good about Rasheed. Like this offense, Yash is a free agent next year, and they haven't exactly had the kindest things to say about him lately. So that he's probably gone. You've got John Runyon Jr., who's a free agent. And all we've talked about is how awesome this offensive line is, how great the depth is. All of a sudden, Bakhtiari is gone, and Yash is gone, and John Runyon Jr. And they could easily just sign Runyon back. Who knows? But like all of a sudden, those guys are gone. It's like, yeah, I still think they can live with a Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, maybe Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom sort of offensive line. Like you can probably be fine, but like that's a lot different, and you certainly don't have the depth after that. So it changes some things. I think the other things that play your who they want back next year. I think B, how does Bakhtiari play this year? Like, does he get through 6 games? Does he get through 10? Does he get through all 17? Like, I think that's going to play a huge part here. And does he continue to play at the level he does? And maybe more importantly, how does the team play? And we heard Brian say this past offseason, the team has to be better, and they needed to go through some change in order to get better. And the younger guys have to play in order for them to get better. If this is a team that makes a legitimate run and gets to the playoffs and is really fun, and they're like, oh, wow, well, we've got, 3-4 top 100 picks next year again. And, we've got some free agent space that we can work with. And all of a sudden, Aaron still look great. David still look great. We can kind of run all that back. Jordan had a really nice year. If all of a sudden you're trending in the right direction, I could see them saying like, yeah, let's kind of do this again and add a few more pieces while we're still getting younger with those 4 top 100 picks. If it doesn't go that way, if Dave doesn't play a ton, or if they just kind of play 6-11 football, which means they're 5-11 the rest of the way after week 1, then they're probably like, yeah, we need to change some things up. So I think that all plays a part. But here's the really interesting part. 2024, David Bakhtiari, age 33 years old next year, has 1 year, $40.58 million remaining on said contract, which is a pretty penny. 19.08 of that, so 19.1 of that basically is signing bonus. It's gone. It's done. You can't have it back. It's already paid to David. It's going to count against the cap no matter what. So really what your decision basically is a 1 year, $21 million deal if you want to bring him back. So on paper, 1 year, 40.5 looks awful, but you're basically deciding, because the 19's already gone no matter what, do you want to pay him that 1 year, $21 million deal? If you do, you probably keep him. I don't think they're going to extend too much with him because they don't know what that's going to bring. So the decision probably legitimately comes down to, if you were a free agent on the street, do you want to sign him to a 1 year, $21 million deal? If the answer is yes, bring him back. If the answer is no, it's Rasheed Walker time.
Or Caleb Jones. Or Caleb Jones.
Or Caleb Jones. Or Luke Tenuta.
I would run behind him anywhere, just saying.
Caleb Jones.
I would just follow him into the darkness.
Help with my grocery shopping, yeah.
Especially in like a crowded store, be like, hey, Caleb, I need to get over here. And if you like, there's a really high item and he can just be like, lift you up to go get said item. Not him getting it himself. That's too easy.
That sounds borderline humiliating, but I'd be here for it. I'd be down for that. Yeah.
I have one more question that I want to ask you. This is specifically a Dusty Evely question. But we'll jump around maybe a little bit. But Dusty, what is the single nerdiest thing that you learned from week 1? Because I know there's something, and I want you to share it with the group.
Oh man, single nerdiest thing. Again, some of it goes down to like just how much fun is LaFleur having versus how much is he just, I just want to screw with people. I think that weird triple option thing was such a bizarre play call. I don't know if
they ran that in practice though, like multiple times.
Well,
like,
they should practice it a few more times.
They should. I think okay, let me ask you this. All right, sorry to interrupt you. Is there any advantage to running that to the short side of the field? Because I can't think of any. That was weird to me.
Well, and the hash stuff too, like it's different in the NFL. So like it's a much bigger deal in college. Like I wouldn't run that to like the boundary side in college. Like I certainly would. You always run that to the field, but you still lose enough. Like you're stringing that out enough. That was the thing. Like if you're going to run that, I know it's only a difference of 3 or 4 yards, whatever that is.
They could have used it.
They could have. Like I still don't think it goes any better.
No, it doesn't. But like I never understood like why you would run that to the short side of the field though.
No, I don't know. No, I don't know. I'm not sure about the nerdiest thing. I think one of the things I was really curious about all off season the things keep me awake at night was, what are they going to do that now that Mercedes Lewis is gone? And in my mind, it was Josh Nijman. Yeah, Nyman's going to be that guy. And it was before, some of the comments came out like he lost the competition because he doesn't want it. He doesn't have the fire, whatever the devil it was that they said. To see Rasheed Walker out there was just like I was charting, I was doing the personnel stuff, and I was like, ooh, 6'11", because I put the sixth offensive lineman first. Like, that's exciting. And it was Rasheed Walker. So that was just a weird little, like, they went the way that I thought they were going to, but not with the guy I thought they were going to, which is just
I thought there was a chance Caleb Jones could have been that guy, just as like the big, huge. No, he wasn't active, obviously.
Some of that backfield stuff, like the offset tight end of the backfield, absolutely put Caleb Jones in that stuff. I would love to see that stuff. Like, so as it
Caleb
goes
Jones
on,
running a goal line fade. Who says no?
Oh my gosh, yes.
They should have ran it not to Bakhtiari last year. If they would have thrown that to Caleb Jones, Aaron Rodgers doesn't miss that throw if they run that to Caleb Jones.
Well, the ball has to be thrown up though.
It has to be thrown up.
Yeah.
Big time. This is a true story. This is how my weird, bizarro, dumb mind works. On the very first day of training camp, the question that I wanted to ask Matt LaFleur was, you don't have Mercedes Lewis anymore. Back in 2020, when you didn't have Mercedes, you used Rick Wagner as a sixth offensive lineman. Do you think that there's a situation that you could use a sixth offensive lineman this year? And then I realized, this is the first day of training camp. I cannot ask. I cannot ask about using a sixth offensive lineman as a tight end when everyone, like every media member, is like dying to get like the big questions in that they want to get for the first day of training camp. I'm like, I cannot ask about a sixth.
This guy really mentioning Rick Wagner? Like, it's day one, man. Let it breathe.
I know. I'm like, I can't do it. But that was like the question in my head that kept coming up. I'm like, I really want to know. Like, could you potentially use six offensive linemen again?
That's amazing.
I don't have anything to write about it or even talk about it. I just really wanted to know. But yeah, that's the way my weird mind works. Guys, you are amazing. Also, Green Bay Packers Daily. Thanks so much for becoming a YouTube member as well. You guys are the absolute best. Even better than the best, though, are Dusty Evely and Maggie Loney. Maggie, tell us where we can find your work and your social media profile.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Maggie J. Loney. You can find me writing for She Said TV on Fridays. I do the pregame six pack, so I give you 6 things to keep an eye on during the game. I'm on the Monday Pack-A-Day team now. That is a recent fun twist, getting used to Sunday recordings. And then, of course, you can find me on Packs What She Said with Brady.
They do an amazing job. I'm so excited to have them on Mondays. Maggie, Kyle, and Andrew, obviously. And yes, Packs What She Said is amazing. With your 6-pack, I can't remember. Do you like pair a beer with each of your takes? Because I feel like because you have like such an amazing like beer taste profile. You should pair a beer with it each time.
I used to do what I'm drinking like for the game, just one beer, but I stopped doing that. So maybe I'll bring that back. That'd be fun.
I like it though. She does amazing work. Make sure to follow her at Maggie J. Loney. Dusty, I'll see you later, bud. And I'm just kidding. Where can we find you?
Good to see you. Maggie, I love that you're back writing. Yes, I know you took some time off. I always love listening to you and Perry, and then you and then the other 2 guys on Pack-A-Day. They're fine. They are fine. But I always love the way you write. I love the voice you write in. I love what you choose to write about. Your sense of humor and just your knowledge comes through. So I'm so thrilled that you are back wriing. I'm on the internet. I'm places, I guess. I'm Packer Report on Tuesdays. My thing on that has always been like I talk about one play. Ross's thing to me on that was just get as nerdy as you want to get. And so this past week I wrote 600 some odd words about can calls, Matt LaFleur and can calls, which was really fun, kind of going down that rabbit hole of play calls and what that means. So the Packer Report on Tuesdays, She Said TV on Wednesdays, where I kind of get into the passing game a little bit more. Tuesdays on She Said TV YouTube channel. I think it's Tuesdays. It's me and John Kuhn walking through a few plays. Cool. That's new this year, and that's been a ton of fun. And then the Wednesday Pack-A-Day, and I feel like I'm missing something. But I can't think of what it is. I'm on the internet. I'm at Dusty Evely on Twitter. I will shout about whatever I'm writing there. What's that?
Do you have a She Said TV thing still you're doing or no?
Yeah. That's on Wednesdays. Yeah, Passing Chronicles that hit today. The first one of the year hit today. So yeah, it's been fun. Every other week, I'm talking Marvel stuff with Aaron Alice and Monty Moore over on Watching Stuff. I'm on Last Call Lambo this week as well. I'm very excited about that. Nice. So I'm a little bit everywhere, I think, at this point.
It's busy season. From a Pack-A-Day standpoint, we had 2 episodes today. Had a great episode with Paul Brettel you can check out. Also did a full film review and kind of going over my grades from this past week. Also, if you're a member, put a bonus episode up, my 12 most surprising things from week 1 for Packers Bears. course, we did Pack-A-Day Live tonight. We've got Happy Hour on Friday. Tomorrow's episode is with Sam Monson from Pro Football Focus.
Oh, nice.
Friday, I'm going to have episodes with Mike Wall, which is always a must watch as well. So Carmen Vitale as well. You'll get an episode from her and I on Friday. And then we've got some Falcons chatter coming up on Saturday. So tons of stuff coming up. So make sure to follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Look into those memberships if you have not already. Maggie, you are the best. Dusty, you are the best.
Thanks.
Thank you to everyone for listening and following along. I will see you all soon. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
Go back, go.
Go Pack Go.